So, Nicklas, first of all, thank you for talking with us. As I was telling you, you were on Rubber Chicken's short list for indie games. We really had to talk in person at
Cool.
Gamescom. Fortunately, that we had the opportunity from Nintendo to talk with you more privately because entertainment area is chaotic. And so, thank you for receiving us. First of all, it was cool when on E3, on the Nintendo Direct, you were one of the games, Affordable Space Adventure was one of the games that really captured our eye. Especially,
nice.
because of how different it looked and the posture you gave to the game. What was your intention originally from coming from Spin the Bottle
Yeah.
to Affordable Space Adventure?
Well, I personally didn't come from Spin the Bottle, since Knapnock, who developed Spin the Bottle, they have everybody else on the team. But I'm actually from a separate company, Nifflas Games. So it's kind of like our company is teaming up to do this
okay.
one. So what happened was basically that Knapnock just released Spin the Bottle at pretty much the same time as I released Knut Underground. So we had both released games for the Wii U, and we were looking for new projects. And I pitched this idea, and we decided to do it together. So that's pretty much what happened.
This is those kind of strange stuff. It's my bad. I didn't research your name.
No, don't worry.
But I bought your game on Desura before having it on other platforms.
Okay.
And I knew you were the author of Knut Underground. Well, it's a good game.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
congratulations. I was checking something which I think it's really intelligent from you, which is the trailer for Affordable Space Adventures.
Right.
It has some irony.
Yeah.
Does this make part of the tone you want to the game?
Yeah, it's always interesting with a contrast. The game is very dark and mysterious and low-key. And whenever going dark, I don't like the idea of going 100% dark or just getting stuck in this kind of one kind of thing. So to balance it, it's just very nice to have something funny at the same time. That I think it's more interesting that way.
Yeah, I still believe with all the irony, it kind of helped you. There's not many gameplay information, or there wasn't before Gamescom much information about Affordable. And the trailer, do you think it was enough to capture people's attentions?
I think so. The trailer captures the game's atmosphere. Since it's kind of a complicated technical game, it's a little bit harder to communicate exactly what you have to do in the game, in the trailers, which I guess is something we'll try to do closer to the release. But I think the main thing is the kind of the mysteriousness of the game comes during the trailer, and then the name kind of communicates the more wild, crazy story in the game.
Okay, so before the release, can you explain a little bit more of what can we expect from Affordable Space Adventures?
Yeah. So basically, the reason it's developed for the Wii U is that we want to use the hardware. We really wanted to do something special with the fact that there's one TV screen and one small screen that's a touch screen, and it has thumbsticks and all the proper controller things too. So we wanted to try to make a game that really uses all of this at the same time. So basically, the game is so as you might have seen in the trailers, you fly around with a spaceship, but on the gamepad you have the ship computer where you can reconfigure your ship and change properties of it. If you want to go really fast, you can increase the system power of the thruster, but that also overheats the ship if you push it too hard. So and the enemies can detect you depending on how much sound or how much heat you emit, and this means that you constantly have to think about these different things. So you might be required to change the ship to a setting that like almost makes no sound. But that setting can also make it really hard to fly. So it's just a constant experimenting, working with the ship computer. It's fairly technical.
We checked the game a little bit, and do you think how much of a margin do you think exists to develop new things with the console so different from the others, such as the Wii U?
It's a good question. From a business point of view, I'm not an expert on that. Diana on Knapnote probably knows it a lot better. To me, it's more like there's a cool console. I'm gonna do a cool game for it. I guess that's the main thing. I mean, I guess it. So maybe it's I can only guess, but I guess it's maybe tricky to get developers to do specific games that requires the specific hardware. Because I guess most people want to go full cross-platform to maximize revenue. But I also think like making something that really uses a piece of hardware and does something with its advantages or differences, it could probably stand out better. That's what I hope. So,
I was asking you this because it was in E3
Yeah.
that we got four of the first good examples of how creative you can be with Wii U.
yeah,
3 of them was from the master Miyamoto,
yeah,
and the other one was with the use you're bringing to Wii U, because most of the games you contact with are starting to adapt to the Wii U screen, and you use it at full extent.
Yeah.
It was on the base of your creative process. For example, you imagine if I have 2 screens, it's this concept I want to go forward with.
yeah. Like the funny thing is the story about how I came up with this idea. Basically, I had read about Steel Battalion, which is this old game for Xbox that used to come with this huge controller, this controller specifically built for this game. And I thought this was really inspirational, building like a vehicle and just not a game for a gamepad. And I started to think about that I really wanted to do this at some point, but also had to be realistic. I could not build hardware for a game.
Yeah.
It wasn't any hardware available that would easily do this. So I kind of was this idea that, yeah, it's cool, but it's not going to happen. Pretty much soon after I was starting to think about that, the Wii U was announced, and realized that it could really work on this console.
Yeah.
So it's heavily inspired by Steel Battalion, even though I've never played that game. So I actually have no idea what that game is like.
Even if it's good.
Yeah, so exactly. So I'm kind of inspired by what I think the game might be like. But yeah, I really have to try it at some point. It's really cool that they have this crazy hardware.
Yeah.
So,
I have to tell you, at first, when I saw Affordable Space Adventures, it reminded me closely to a Wii U exclusive.
yeah.
Yeah, but since every time I look and I looked at on the Hall 10.1 where
Yeah.
you have Affordable Space Adventures, I noticed how different it was from Abyss, which is an eShop game for Wii U.
I'm not sure. I haven't played that one.
No?
Abyss.
Yeah. Okay, it's simpler from what you are trying to accomplish with.
Yeah.
And instantly I was like, okay, this looks like the same game, but suddenly I noticed you are trying to reach a level of complexity far greater, aren't you?
I can't compare with that game since
Yeah,
I don't actually
yeah,
know
you don't know,
what it
yeah.
is. But I guess we want to, like the kind of complexity, we want mainly to have this really advanced vehicle. And to me that's like a new challenge to like build a vehicle that feels like it's a thing and not just like an avatar with like some code, but yeah, it should like really have the illusion of a vehicle that makes internal sense.
He will change his aspect with the changes you create?
Yeah, it's like when you change the engine, it like swap from the electric to fuel engine, it really feels, it flies differently and it sounds different. Like it, and depending on what you do with the ship, we want the sound and visuals to communicate like all of these changes.
Okay. But the look also, you can notice those changes. For example, if you change the thrusters, will it look different?
It depends on what you do. Like the ship's appearance won't change, but the smoke that it emits will change, and there's always some visuals that change. Like each system tends to have like something visually that it modifies. With sound, it's very, very easy to tell. Like we have like 16 different layers of sound that kind of like crossfades and alters itself depending on what you do to make sure that you always hear like every change in how the ship operates. And we're not done with the work yet, so we probably need like even more attention to this detail.
I was thinking, it's strange to ask this to a creator, but how hard is your game?
It's definitely on like the harder range of the scale. We might add an easier mode. Okay. We haven't still figured out how we will solve this. It's like we've done a lot of playtesting with people who play a lot of games and are also good puzzle solvers, and we believe we have hit a good difficulty spot for that group of players. But right now we have some players who aren't super good with like maneuvering or like don't want to stop and think so much. To them this can be a bit too hard. But we can't just make it easier, because then we lose the people and the people who really like the game right now. So we may try to solve it through like an easier difficulty or something like that.
Are you trying to reach Nintendo hard mode?
Nintendo hard mode? Like, what is that?
During the 90s there was a concept of there is hard and there is Nintendo hard, which is it's really for hardcore players who try to beat your game.
I wouldn't say, maybe this one isn't necessarily for hardcore gamers. Actually, I can imagine many hardcore gamers having a problem with this one, because hardcore gamers often want to like beat the game like they know it, and if you rush into every scenario here,
you'll die.
So, like, I think players will have an easier time with this game if they stop and think and consider all the options before they rush into something. I guess this is one of the things we're still like really working on, to try to encourage people to experiment and change the shape and see what happens on different settings. Okay. It's a slightly different kind of difficulty than in a lot of games.
But you're looking at a specific niche of the market.
We kind of want to reach out to as many people as possible, and that's also why we have the multiplayer mode there. Like in that case, with the multiplayer you can play 2 people or 3 people, and then the engineer who runs the ship computer has a much harder task than the pilot who steers the ship. So then 2 people of very different skill levels can enjoy the same game. So we're also like doing solutions like that.
Okay. So what you're telling me is you are adding another layer of the game, because the way you play as a single player is completely different from cooperative mode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the cooperative mode, that's really interesting. Like programmers has this term which is called rubber duck debugging, and that is talking to a rubber duck because having to explain a problem makes you more. Just putting words on it means that you often come up with a solution just out of the way you told what the problem is. And playing multiplayer means you have two people talking to each other. So not only are you two people to think about the puzzles, but just talking about them makes you much more likely to come up with a solution. So in multiplayer, all the puzzles become easier just because you're talking. Yeah. But executing them becomes much more challenging. Because now you're just not one person who can push all the buttons, but you're two people who have to time what you do together, right? So it's interesting because you trade one type of difficulty for another type of difficulty. And the game just plays very differently. And which is great. Like, we want people to have different experiences of the game, and I think they'll have that.
It just sounds that the cooperative mode just adds more value to the game. Yeah. Was it originally on your concept for the game?
Not on my personal concept. My idea of it was a single-player game, but I teamed up with Knapnock, who make like multiplayer party games. So they were the ones who suggested this to be like a thing the game could do, and it just made total sense. So I really wanted it, but I wouldn't have come up with the idea myself.
So I think the solution is pretty creative, actually.
Yeah.
It gives the question of you synchronizing with another person really adds another level of difficulty.
Yeah.
Although it was their suggestion, you accepted it, and you thought it made sense with your original concept.
Yeah, it definitely did. And also, the nice thing, I've never worked in a team in this way. I mean, I've had a lot of help from other people with my games, but now I'm working with 7 people in an office, which is completely new to me. And so one fun thing is that I'm used to have full creative freedom in my games, but that means I also know that other people want the same thing, right? So that means when I'm working with a programmer or artist or other game designers, I'm not saying do this, but I'm more trying to communicate my idea of the game, but also listening to their ideas. And so the game isn't it's not exactly like I imagined it from the start, because I've taken so much in from ideas and solutions from the rest of the team. But I think it's more interesting than it would have been if I would have done it myself.
Did you do Complete Underground alone? Or did you have more people?
It's a bit different. In that game, I had a lot of friends, both from my community and people I know in real life, who would help me out and do music and graphics, and so they would just submit something. And I would find a way to put it into the game. So if we had a thing where somebody could make a piece of music, and then I would get the piece of music, listen to it, and then I would design an area that would fit this music. And sometimes we would do it the other way around. I would first design an area, show it, and a musician would check it out and make music that fits it. But also, I always like having this dialogue where it's not knowing exactly how things are going to end up. Improvising is always done a lot of improvising with games.
So affordable is your which third game, fourth game?
No, more definitely. So I started out making a bunch of free games like Mondachi's Story, Operator Status, Within a Deep Forest, Knit Stories, Saira Night Sky, and The Great Work, Knit Underground, Fire Nuclear Crocodile Killer, and now Affordable Space Adventures. I think
that's quite a portfolio already.
But many of those games are free. So I started out just making games for free as a hobby before I started to try to live off it.
What's your initial formation? Are you a programmer from base?
Don't know. Like most of these games are made in multimedia fusion, which is like a visual scripting thing. Well, technically it is programming, but it's not presented as like text code. I've known a little bit about programming languages, like done some Python, some BASIC in the olden days. But this whole thing with C# and Unity is very new to me. So this is the first project where I actually started to use Unity. And
Affordable is Unity based?
Yeah. So I had to learn C# so I could help out with the programming in the game. We have another main programmer, Heino, who's like super awesome. So he has been super patient with me and like teaching me stuff so that I could do
what you were trying to.
Yeah, so he did all the structural programming in the game and like all the heavy programming. Then I do some of the spaceship programming around like his structures. So.
Okay. Do you think you and the other companies who are starting to create games exclusively to Wii U? Are you starting, or you can be in the first wave of different indie games for Wii U?
Yeah, well, in this case, the choice of going exclusive, not even sure it is exclusive. It's more the choice of going for the console was just for what we could do with the specific hardware. I don't think I have any like real interest in being exclusive for the sake of being exclusive itself. So if I'm gonna do this again with more consoles, it's basically gonna be because we have some interesting idea we want to try specifically on that system. But I guess the Wii U is particularly interesting because it has that additional touchscreen, which we can do like a lot of things with.
I was thinking this because I know you just joined Knock, but they did a game for Wii U.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work in any other platform.
Yeah, I think that's also why we teamed up on this one, because if I had this idea that about a game that specifically used the Wii U hardware, like Knock just made sense to pitch this idea to them. Because they actually do that kind of stuff that I don't think everybody would dare to do.
Do you think it's a question of courage in the nowadays? Because, like you said, most of the companies try to spread their multi-platform for the revenue.
Yeah.
But some are trying to use the hardware for the 3DS and the Wii U for specific matter. Do you think it has a big part of courage in the middle of this?
I definitely think there's some courage, either that or just like that. Also, both Knock and me tends to put our like just what we want to do first. If we really want to do this game, we don't do a lot of market research to figure out whether it's gonna sell or not. We just try to apply for money and try to do different things to see if we can actually pull it off. So that's what we did here, and strangely enough, it seems to work out. So.
Yeah. And do you have a close idea of when can we get the final version or the release version of Affordable Space Adventures?
Hopefully early next year. We don't know exactly. We don't have like an exact date yet, but I think Q1 2014.
Okay. And just to wrap it up, we already talked about you have the game available on the entertainment area.
Yeah.
How's the feedback of the visitors of Gamescom?
People really, really seem to like it. So that's always like a great thing to see. I guess there's some. It also doubles up a little bit as a playtesting session because we can see a few areas where people are like having a bit of difficulty understanding what we intended or how something works. But we got plenty of time to like make adjustments and stuff. So it's really good feedback that will which will affect the game a little bit too.
So are you facing this Gamescom as a huge beta testing laboratory?
A little bit, yeah.
So you have all your guinea pigs just appearing and testing the game.
It's just really nice. People come up and then we can see them play and see what happens. It's even in Copenhagen we do like weekly play testing, and but yeah.
Did you have several difficulties on your demo here at Gamescom?
No, we haven't implemented that yet.
No.
Or we technically have support for it. But
Or the different difficulty of puzzles?
yeah, now we do have support for it, but we haven't made different versions of the puzzles yet, so we can't test that. So we're only testing the hard version of the game now, and kind of realizing that it would be nice if like the people who this game is currently too hard for could enjoy it too.
Okay. Nicklas, thank you for talking with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Wish you all the best for affordable Swiss adventures.
Thanks.
And I promise you I will try to beat your demo in the next 2 hours. Okay?
Nice.
So
Sure.
thank you and good rest of Gamescom.
Yeah, and thanks also.